Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand under Standing Order 19A and Standing Order 20. Mr. Speaker, and in furtherance of a recent decision by the High Court HTC number E202 of 2023, Kenneth Njagi Njiru and 11 others versus the National Assembly of Kenya and others. Mr. Speaker, I will not go to the demerits and merits of that matter. I will go to what the court concluded, which is that the Azimio side is the majority. And based on that, Mr. Speaker, again, because I've said I'm not going to the merits and demerits of that decision, Mr. Speaker, I want to just indicate that I have therefore, as the majority party whip of Azimio, today handed over to your office a copy of that decision of the High Court with a letter that we are giving you according to the standing orders, our majority leader as Honorable Junet Mohammed and Honorable Robert Mbui. Mr. Speaker, following the standing orders, Honorable Junet will thereafter then communicate me officially as the minority whip, going by what the standing orders, but yes, a majority whip. Majority. Mr. Speaker, I also stand under Standing Order 90 and had actually consulted you about this. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the judgment of that court, the court actually infer that because of the position you hold as Speaker and also as Chairman of your party, Mr. Speaker, it is not as party leader of your party, Mr. Speaker, it is not possible for you to be fair. You are going to be conflicted when you are conducting the matters of this House. Mr. Speaker, I therefore humbly request you to step down and mandate Honorable Gladys Boschole to take over in discharging the functions as the Speaker because of your conflict of interest. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in concluding, Mr. Speaker, because I said I'm not going to go to the merits and demerits of the matter, in concluding, I want to urge that as a parliament, we need to obey court rulings and decisions, even when we don't agree with them. And Mr. Speaker, I also just want to indicate that you can see my two colleagues are standing next to me. My advice to them in future is to follow a philosophy from my community which says, Telo, Ikao, Telo Kumingato. So next time they should do what Honorable Ruku did. Jump if you have to, but take your position the way Honorable Millie has done.
Is that part of your point of order?
No. Mr. Speaker, I said as an arbiter. And Mr. Speaker, I would also just want to say, very finally, also as an arbiter, Mr. Speaker, people are also talking about broad-based. Again, I'm very careful. I'm saying this as an arbiter. It's not my substantive argument. Mr. Speaker, people talk of broad-based. Yeah, and even when you look at the decisions of the arguments of the court, they keep making reference to the de jure and the de facto. And many things may have changed over time. And Mr. Speaker, I'd want to say that actually if you look at this side of the House today, we are seeing broad, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we want to see good faith, we want to see if it is also based. It is broad. But based, whether it is based will depend on the decision going forward. Otherwise, we will be told by the court it is hot air, this broad base is hot air, wild goose chase, and all those other things, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move.
Order, members. Order, members. Maintain your silence. Millie Odhiambo has raised 2 points. One I'll dispose of very quickly, and the other I will allow the House some latitude as to whether the Speaker, yours truly, should preside over these proceedings or not. I'll dispose it off as follows. One, there's no motion before the House about the Speaker. Number two, I am a senior lawyer in this country, and I'm your senior Millie Odhiambo. I have read that judgment with a tooth comb, and there's nowhere it requires the Speaker to do what you are saying. More particularly, the final findings of that judgment, which as a distinguished learned friend, we had an opportunity to read through together today. That judgment does not cast aspersions on the Speaker presiding on such proceedings. Number three, in similar situations, in the 10th Parliament, a motion was brought to this House by the then member for Kibwezi, the Honorable Patrick Musimba, to discuss the conduct and the possible vacation of office by Speaker Muturi as he then was. Speaker Muturi presided over the debate, and the vote was taken, and the motion went the way it did. Number four, in the 7th Parliament, when I was a fresher in this House, the Honorable James Orengo, or one of the then Ford Kenya members, brought a motion to discuss the conduct and character of the then Speaker, Francis Xavier Kausai Olekaparo. Kausai Olekaparo presided over the proceedings. The motion was debated and put to a vote, and it went the way it did. I'm sure you know that neither Muturi nor Kaparo left office on the basis of any motion. Number five, you as truly as your Speaker does not debate, does not vote. I hold a position of honor to preside over your proceedings. Anybody who wants to say anything about this judgment, I'll give you an opportunity. And it's finally going to be yours truly to give you a ruling on the matter. It must also be made very clear as we listen to each other that neither the court nor any authority outside this chamber, and senior lawyers like Otiendo Molo should know this, neither the court nor any other authority outside this chamber can make declarations that affect the conduct of business here except yourselves by voting and by the Speaker giving you rulings. Number seven, we sit here as a quasi-judicial body. And as a quasi-judicial body, I will listen to you, and I assure you, I'll give you a fair finding. It is like going to court and telling a judge that because the lawyer appearing before him was his classmate, he will not be fair. That has no foundation in law or in fact. So I'll open up and hear those who want to have similar points of order, as Millie Odhiambo has raised, on the judgment. And I want also to caution you members that your standing orders do not allow you to discuss the person or character of any judge unless you have brought a special motion to discuss that judge. You can analyze the judgment, you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, you can qualify it, you can do whatever you want. But don't disparage or discuss the character of any judge without a special motion as is provided for in our standing orders. Honorable Millie Odhiambo, that is my direction. Thank you. Yes, Wanjala. What's your point of order? Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the first clarification, which we have humbly understood and agreed with. But, Mr. Speaker, you have left out the second issue about the majority leader in the House.
Order, Angela. That is exactly the issue that Millie raised. That she has written the Speaker. Yes, I've received the letter. I'll analyze it. I have given you an opportunity to speak to her point of order or any other point of order. Yes. Yes, Junaid Mohammed.
Mr. Speaker, first I want to say today that I am privileged to speak from the seat of the majority leader. Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, even when I sat on the seat, it is very warm, Mr. Speaker, unlike mine, which was very cold, Mr. Speaker. I didn't know the seats of Parliament have different warmth, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't foresee myself leaving this seat anytime soon. I don't see myself leaving this one anytime. But having said, Mr. Speaker, as you are aware and as you have alluded to, Mr. Speaker, there is a court ruling. A ruling of court consisting of 3-judge bench, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a court ruling has only got 2 decisions, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it. One is to obey it, and secondly, if you have any avenue of appeal, you exercise that right of appeal, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it, Mr. Speaker. And the court ruling, what we went as Azimio after the election, after your decision here, Mr. Speaker, what took us to court was for the court to interpret for us the constitutionality of your decision on who is the majority party and who is the minority party in this House, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of the Speaker came in as obiter, Mr. Speaker. But what took us to court, we wanted to know, because when we arrived here after the election, we arrived here knowing very well that we are the majority party, Mr. Speaker. And we are the numbers. But midway, we ended up losing numbers through your ruling, Mr. Speaker. And that is what took us to court, to ascertain whether we are the majority and whether we are the minority. And luckily, the court has made its ruling, albeit late, Mr. Speaker. We expected this ruling much earlier than this time, Mr. Speaker. But it is better late than never. The decision arrived, and the decision has said that the Azimio party is the majority party in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And I so happen to be the minority leader as of now, Mr. Speaker. So today afternoon, I just switched seats and I took over the role of majority leader, Mr. Speaker. And I am capable of doing that work, Mr. Speaker. I have the capacity, I have the qualifications, I have the capabilities, I have the numbers in the House, Mr. Speaker, to lead, Mr. Speaker. I have everything what it takes, Mr. Speaker, to be the majority leader of this House, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the issue that we need to exercise, to analyze, Mr. Speaker, is that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. Mr. Speaker, court rulings are very important, Mr. Speaker. You remember after the election, we disputed the result of the election. We ended up filing a court case in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court pronounced itself that we did not win the election, and the other party won the election, and we abided by it, and we respected the court ruling, Mr. Speaker. This court ruling also must be respected, Mr. Speaker. Because it's not like any other court ruling, Mr. Speaker. It's a ruling of the Court of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this ruling cannot be taken jokingly, Mr. Speaker. When I went through it last evening, Mr. Speaker, these judges are raising very serious fundamental issues. They are raising issues relating to violation of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And you remember we impeached someone here because he violated the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if this matter is not addressed, we are going to have a constitutional crisis in this country, Mr. Speaker. So for that reason, Mr. Speaker, jurisdictions all over the world and democracies all over the world that we borrowed from, even this presidential system that we are running today that is running in this country, Mr. Speaker. In the United States, there are times when the executive is from the Republican Party and the House is ruled by the Democratic Party, and life goes on. It doesn't matter that we are going to oppose everything that the government wants to do. If government brings here bills and policies that are of benefit to the country, we will support it, Mr. Speaker. And as you know now, many things have gone under the bridge. There is this animal called also broad-based, Mr. Speaker. We want to broaden, deepen, and tighten this relationship, Mr. Speaker. If I may borrow your words, we want to broaden it, deepen it, and tighten it, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have a country that is cohesive, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is no way we are going to have this animal in place, and then when we want to become the majority, people look at us with suspicious eyes. How can it be, Mr. Speaker? Members of Parliament are members of Parliament. They work under the Article 95 of the Constitution, which has given them the roles of oversight, legislation, and representation, Mr. Speaker. We are not going to do our business outside Article 95, Mr. Speaker. So, I want to allay fears here that the majority in the House must be from the ruling party. That this ruling is giving us posterity. This is doing things for posterity, Mr. Speaker. Next election, or the other election in 2032, a government might come in place where the president garners the majority votes and is elected as the president, but he will not have numbers in parliament. His numbers might be few in parliament, and he becomes a minority. So this is now the trend we are setting, that parliament is independent, judiciary is independent, executive is independent. We have no problem with the executive to do their work, and we know the President of the Republic of Kenya as of today is Honorable William Samoei Ruto, Mr. Speaker. There is no doubt about that. So there should be no ambiguity and doubt that the majority leader in the National Assembly is Honorable Junet Mohammed, the Member of Parliament for Sunai, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. And I am going to serve the country diligently, Mr. Speaker, without any fear and favor, Mr. Speaker. I am a seasoned politician. I am serving my third term in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I know how Parliament operates. I know how Parliament does its work. And I understand how bills are done in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I have gained enough experience. So this mindset,
wind up,
Mr. Speaker, this mindset that the ruling party must have majority in Parliament for them to do the executive work of the country, Mr. Speaker, that mindset must be gotten rid of, Mr. Speaker. We must emulate democracies that have matured over 200 years, Mr. Speaker. In the last election, in the last administration of Biden in America, Mr. Speaker,
wind up.
The Republican Party was controlling the House, Mr. Speaker, and the Democratic Party was controlling the Senate, and life was going on as usual, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, my advice to the House and to Parliament in general is that the only solution to this problem is to go to appeal. Until the appeal overturns this matter, I shall be recognized as the majority leader of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Those few remarks, I conclude.
Kenyan, all the honorable members, before Order Wanjala, order. In all civilized parliaments, when you appreciate a point, you thumb your foot. You don't stand up and throw your hands in the air. Kenyan, before you take the floor, let's have some ground rules. Everybody, I'll give an opportunity to speak. Can we do 3 minutes? Is that good enough? Everybody, I'll give an opportunity. We do 3 minutes. I want 3 minutes. Let's also observe decorum. 3 minutes. Honorable Robert Mbui and Honorable Mwenje. If it is making a point, you have made your point. It is beneath your dignity to continue standing there while the matters are going on. Kenyan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is luckily.
Order. Let's hear each other in silence.
Mr. Speaker, this
If
is
you really want to get a reasoned ruling from the Speaker, let's hear each other. Kenyan, give to Kenyan.
Mr. Speaker, this is the House of Rules. This is the House of Traditions. This is a house that enjoys being a quasi-judicial institution. Mr. Speaker, on the face of it, I want to take this opportunity to welcome my colleagues to this very important session and say that the Kenyan people outside there are really looking upon us to deliberate in a civilized manner and guide this nation. Mr. Speaker, there comes a time when there are issues that must be deliberated and agreed upon. And I want to agree one thing with my brother Junet, that you are qualified even to be the President of the Republic of Kenya, not even the majority leader alone. Mr. Speaker, having said this, there are certain things that we must clear and follow the procedures, and it's only the procedures that will guide us. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the order paper today, the next order paper, order number 8, is supposed to provide for the appointment of members of the House Business Committee, which is the anchor committee for the House Business, Mr. Speaker. But we cannot reach there until certain issues are sorted out, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, now that we can discuss the appointment under this order number 8, I want to seek your guidance on the following. Mr. Speaker, it's apparent that the High Court last week has quashed the ruling contained in the Speaker's communication dated 6 October 2022 on the majority and the minority. That is a fact. It cannot be denied. Mr. Speaker, secondly, I had a chance to go through this great ruling. I've internalized, I've looked at it, I've seen what it means, I've seen what in the letter and interpretation of this, what the Speaker in the House is generally expected to do. Mr. Speaker, on the face of it, there are certain, the petitioner sought the following declaration to be issued that Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition is the majority party in the National Assembly based on the outcome of the general elections of based on the outcome of the elections of members of the National Assembly held on 9th August. The second, Mr. Speaker, prayers was the declaration be issued to declare that Kenya Kwanza Alliance is a minority party in the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the orders given, even under order number 4, it's a bit confusing. It is not explicit. It doesn't say this. The court declined. They quashed the Speaker's ruling, but did not give proper guidance on what constitutes the majority and the minority. Mr. Speaker, from
Give him 1 minute.
it is clear, Mr. Speaker, the court quashed the ruling of the majority and the minority, but never answered the question on how this later on is going to be arrived in the House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this means we are back to square one where we were when this parliament started. We are back to square one, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, unless this question is determined, we are staring at a crisis. Mr. Speaker, I say this because standing order,
Yes.
standing order 171, I'm on a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Wanjala. What's your point of order? Give him the mic. Give Wanjala the mic. There you are.
Mr. Speaker, courts are arbiters. And when they have given orders or declarations, it's up to the institution to implement. It is not debated.
Order,
You
Wanjala.
have seen the ruling of the court.
Order,
Mr. Speaker,
Wanjala. Order. Order, Wanjala. I don't know whether... Have you even read that judgment? Have you read that judgment? Kainan, wind up.
Trying to say that unless this question pursuant to Standing Order 171 is determined, we are facing a crisis, and this crisis can only be sorted out with a proper guidance from the Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to say is this This state of affairs, Mr. Speaker, portends a crisis for the House, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we want your guidance, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 171, on which party is the majority and which party is the minority. Once that is determined, Mr. Speaker, all the other things will flow, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I want to seek your guidance on this.
Osoro. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, he's occupying our space, Mr. Speaker. Why can't they just move to their side?
Order, Robert Mbui. Order, Robert Mbui. If you listen to me carefully, Robert Mbui, order members. And I want you to listen to this carefully. Order members. Order. I did say Robert Mbui, and you are misconducting yourself. You are too senior to be told to leave the chamber. I did say, and I want to repeat, and Emilio Odhiambo, who raised the point, has read this judgment clearly. The judgment quashed the direction of the Speaker on the majority-minority. The judgment never declared who is the majority. It is not the court to declare the majority. It is the Speaker of this House. And you better know that. It is the Speaker of the House to declare the majority. Robert Mbui gone. Not Osoro.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak it up from what you've actually said, Honorable Speaker. That even upon reading the judgment of the court, the standing orders of this House, Honorable Speaker, gives you power to declare who is the majority and who is the minority. We appreciate the judgment of the court as it is. We are ventilating about the judgment. We respect the courts. But again, it is these very laws that govern, as Honorable Speaker, that give you that power, as Honorable Speaker, to declare the majority and minority. So even as Honorable Junet and the Honorable Emilio Odhiambo, Honorable Speaker, live on rented space, they should know that the final declaration of majority and minority comes from your seat, Honorable Speaker. But even then, Honorable Speaker, perhaps we should ponder and ask ourselves these very pertinent questions. In the past 2 years that we've served in this House, Honorable Speaker, we've served in these capacities, as it were, on who is the majority and who is the minority, Honorable Speaker. Several decisions have been made. We have formations of the committees that fall on the majority, minority, chairman, the committees that are supposed to be led by members from the majority side, and the committees that are led by the members of the minority side. Does it mean, Honorable Speaker, that every decision that has been passed by the committees, or any report that has been passed by the committee that falls on the minority, as it were then, and the majority, is it rendered mute as it is right now, Honorable Speaker? If going by the judgment, if we read on the judgment, like they want us to define it as it, just on plain paper, Honorable Speaker, that is question one. Question two that we should ask ourselves, Honorable Speaker. Right now, the selection panel, Honorable Speaker, of the IEBC that was nominated by both the minority parties or the Parliamentary Service Commission, that minority party brought the membership, the majority party brought the membership. The IEBC selection panel has already started working, Honorable Speaker, right now in terms of selecting the next commissioners. What then happens to them? What happened to that selection panel? Because they were appointed on the basis of the majority and the minority when the Parliamentary Service Commission submitted the names. Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves, Honorable Speaker. The Commission for Revenue Authority, Honorable Speaker, that again is a preserve of both the minority and the majority. Honorable Speaker, what then happens on the decisions that have been made in the past 2 years? The allowances that have been paid, Honorable Speaker, the travels that have been made, everything that we've passed, Honorable Speaker, in this house. Those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves, because we are at the midterm of this Parliament, Honorable Speaker. Even as you retire to make this your ruling, Honorable Speaker, it is important for us, Honorable Speaker, to ask ourselves those very pertinent questions, because we shouldn't just be
Okay. Thank you, Osoro. Give him a minute.
Honorable Speaker, you see, we shouldn't just be talking about positions on who is the minority, who is the majority leader, and as Honorable Junet as well put it, We are all members of parliament and we can serve in whatever capacity. But let's look at the implications of this decision, Honorable Speaker. What happens to what we've passed in the past 2 years? What happens to the right decisions that are leading this country in the past 2 years, Honorable Speaker? What happens to the IEBC selection panel? Those are the questions. Otherwise, I'll tell my colleagues, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo, who is saying that she has added in her CV the position of the chief whip of the majority. She'll only do that, Honorable Speaker, in her dreams. It will not work. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
David Ocheng.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the three judges.
Order, honorable members, can we listen to each other?
I want to thank
Save David Ocheng's time. Order, members.